Welcome to Brandon Hall Group's HCMX Radio, the only podcast in the HCM arena that weaves current market research, HR technology, and industry leaders into each episode. Our HCMX Radio host is our Chief Operating Officer and Principal HCM Analyst, Rachel Cook.
Hello, and welcome to Brandon Hall Group's Excellence at Work podcast. Thank you for joining, and don't forget to subscribe. Today we're going to be talking about the future of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This episode is part of our executive series of Brandon Hall Group's that we will be also featuring in our HCM Business Priorities Outlook 2023 study, which will be released in January and distributed at our conference and also digitally through our subscribers. And so today we're going to be talking with, and I'd like to warmly welcome Stacy Hellstrom. Stacy is the Global Enterprise Learning and Leadership Development Leader at Eastman Chemical Company. And it's great to have you here today. Hi, Stacy. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me, Rachel. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Me too. And just to share with our viewers today a little bit about Stacy. Stacy joined Eastman to lead the Enterprise Learning and Leadership Development function in the fall of 2016. She works with organizational leaders and teams to analyze business objectives and align organization development strategies and values to accelerate performance and success. She also advises the company's Latinx employee resource group and leads the global cadre of senior coaches who are strategically leveraged to support talent development and change initiatives across the enterprise. And in 2022, she won the Brandon Hall Group Excellence Award for Best Learning Program for Unconscious Bias. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's very exciting.
Yes. It's your program is fascinating, and I'm looking forward to kind of learning more from you about how you build it, your thoughts, your perspectives. And when you're not leading charge at Eastman, you are spending time with your husband, Dean. You have 2 grown children, and you enjoy time with family, hiking, cooking, and relaxing on your boat. So it sounds like you have a nice balance of work and also some fun activities when you're not working, which, I think we're seeing a lot how important it is to really kind of find that balance, especially, even before the pandemic. Everyone's running around like crazy. I have children right now of all ages, 9, 15, 18 in college. So, and even if you don't have children, I remember before I had children, I thought my day was packed. When you're so busy doing work and trying to get as much accomplished, it never seems like your day is over. So it's really important to take time for yourself. And those of you, just before we begin, I want to share a little bit about your company that you're with. Eastman Chemical Company was founded in 1920. Eastman is a global specialty materials company that produces a broad range of products found in items people use every day. With the purpose of enhancing the quality of life in a material way, Eastman works with customers to deliver innovative products and solutions while maintaining a commitment to safety and sustainability.
Absolutely.
Eastman employs approximately 14,000 people around the world and serves customers in more than 100 countries. The company had a 2021 revenues of approximately $10.5 billion and is headquartered in Tennessee.
It is, yes. We're very proud of our sustainability efforts. Things are really taking off in that space, and it's fun to watch the difference it makes in our communities, along with our bottom line, but definitely in the communities that we serve.
Absolutely. And I would love to learn also how you, what was your career journey and how did you end up in the learning industry?
It's probably a little bit different than most people that work in the same space that I do. I actually began my career as a speech language pathologist and had the opportunity after a few years to lead teams And that was a great experience for me. I learned a lot about what I really enjoyed, which was watching people grow and finding their best self, and finding those unique ways to help each individual shine, if you will. And ultimately, I ended up in working for a global human resources consulting firm several years ago now, and have had great opportunities to just build on my experiences. And the last 12 or 15 years, I've been primarily focused in the space of leadership development, of which inclusion and diversity is a really important part.
Mm-hmm. And teams are too. So,
Yeah.
we've done a lot of research around team dynamics and understanding how to drive, how to select teams, how to develop them, how to think about teams as part of the organization. And all work is done in some capacity of some type of team interaction, or whether it's a team itself or it's teams that are brought together to help accomplish a particular task or program. So so that's really interesting how you're, how you kind of thought about teams early on and how you like to see how they develop and perform, and then tying that into our discussion today, the future of diversity, equity, and inclusion. What can you talk a bit about your program around mitigating unconscious bias, or your the things that you did to help with mitigating unconscious bias?
Absolutely. So at Eastman, we think about the way we address inclusion and diversity as at large through 4 pillars. So I'll just mention those first. And one of those pillars is mitigating unconscious bias. The second pillar is fostering an inclusive culture. The third pillar is building inclusive teams, so bringing us back to that teams aspect. And then finally, accelerating diversity in leadership. And mitigating unconscious bias pillar and accelerating diversity in leadership are both squarely addressed by our inclusive leadership program. Inclusive leadership was designed with the individual leader in mind. Today, prior to launching inclusive leadership in 2021, we had established 2 other programs that were, filling a couple of needs we had. One was just helping individuals understand what their life experience has been for them, how it has shaped them, and their worldview, in order that they are better positioned to see the views of others. And so, for example, what has my life's privilege really looked like? And you have, yes, I have had privilege, regardless of who I am. Another program we had was focused on intact teams and discovering opportunities to be more inclusive within that team. What we were missing was something that an individual leader could participate in, do a deep, sort of dive diagnosis for themselves. Where is unconscious bias showing up in my day to day, the decisions I make? Who gets the stretch assignments? Who am I considering or advocating for promotion? What does my team tend to look like and sound like? Do they look and sound like me to a large degree? And how might I think differently so that I can create more diversity and then greater breadth of thought and creativity in my team? So that's the high level.
And did you find, as you were, there's a lot of different schools of thought on unconscious bias, and whether, is that something that we can really change, or is it so hardwired in us or ingrained or embedded in you that it's, psychologists say it's near impossible. What's your thinking on that?
I think that it is a needle that we can move. I think it's not a flip the switch activity though, it does require a fair amount of introspection and willingness to understand how I got here. Right. So, I am who I am because of the experiences I've had in my life, what I've been taught, just the same as any other individual out there is who they are for those exact same reasons. And what we find in the way we advertise the program and invite people to engage is that when we talk about a couple of things, one is we're not here to change your beliefs. That's not our job. What we are here to do is to open the door to seeing things differently so that you might make some different choices that have a better impact than what you're able to have today. And the topic of changing my beliefs is really important because that's a core part of how any one of us identifies ourselves. And it would not be fair for an employer to suggest that I'm here to change your core beliefs. I do have a fair stand to make in asking for each of us to show up a certain way so that we can bring our full selves and maximize our opportunities in terms of our business strategy.
I love the way that you explain your point of view because that's very valid. What your core beliefs are, that doesn't necessarily change. But I've even experienced going through some of these different workshops and exercises. I find them so fascinating when I learn about others and how they think about things that they may not have even thought of, or even things that, someone takes that we hear maybe almost every day is like some type of common terms for depending on what your ethnicity is or where you grew up or neighborhood or state or this could be so many different variables that you can't possibly know if you hadn't had that experience or went through this exercise. So I think they're great. They're really fascinating in how you kind of learn about each other and reflect on different things. What are some of the challenges did you face when you started to develop this type of training?
So, frankly, where we're located, where the bulk of our employee base is located, is in Tennessee, and our religion, that my beliefs about that are related to what I've been taught in church over my lifetime are they're an important consideration, right? So what the challenge we faced on the front end was thinking ahead to how can we offer deep respect for the beliefs that are generated from a part of a lot of our employees' lives that is so prevailing and so important for them, while at the same time giving them a roadmap to open their thinking and try something different on for size. On the front end, that challenge was voiced, and I'm grateful for that because it helped me understand in real time where I had some opportunities to make some tweaks so that the important thing in topic areas like this is to meet people where they are so that you can take them where they need to go. And so on the front end of the bulk of 2021, that was a fairly salient part of our experience with the program was thinking about how to meet people where they are. As the program's gotten more popular and more people have experienced it in full and have actually deployed their conscious inclusion plans and they're seeing differences, we don't find ourselves, needing to have that kind of dialogue on the front end. But that was definitely something that we wanted to pay attention to so that we were respectfully creating a space where people could try something different.
And did you find, I see some of your results here and the impact and the percentage of your people that went through it, how they had taken action. And that's what really trying to kind of distill out of a lot of whatever we're, producing, whether it's our research or, chatting with you, is trying to help people take action, because our research shows that over 90% of companies are or intending to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, but not nearly half of those organizations are not necessarily taking any action or have the the know-how to, because there are so many things that you can do, whether it's starting an ERG group or even offering some type of diversity training or unconscious bias training. But when it's not integrated and there's not action or that afterthought, then it's just a nice to do. But the results are not necessarily ever that great or impactful. So how, can you talk a little bit about how people are taking action and how this is integrated into your overall DE strategy?
Yeah, I'd love to. So one of the things that's most unique about this program is the Conscious Inclusion Plan that I mentioned earlier. So the program is teed up so that we're walking our participants through some material that helps them understand how we got here, right? Unconscious bias is a part of our hardwiring. It's our easy button. It's the piece of our brain that tells us what is safe and what we should pay attention to. And the purpose of this program is to help us find the necessary override buttons. And the process of doing that is creating greater understanding about what important terms mean, how they impact different groups of people and people around each one of us on any given day. And things like microaggressions. What is that? How does it show up? Things like, we go a little deeper into gender bias and into racial biases, because they are they're more visible and more prevalent. And they are the touchier topics, especially racial bias. And so what better way to create a shared language and a broader point of view around what we can do differently and better in that space than to talk about it. And we invite ERG leadership team members to also co-facilitate those sessions with us. They're able to bring real stories that our participants can react to. We've created a safe space. I am thrilled and amazed every time we run a session at the candor and the tenderness too that's exhibited in the kinds of questions that get asked and discussed in the session. And so at the end of the program, then what we're working toward is the Conscious Inclusion Plan, where they're able to make plans for activating on what they've learned. How can I address microaggressions, within my space, for example? We use a process called Map, Bridge, Integrate to get them prepared. And what that exercise does is offers to our participants the opportunity to think about each of the individual team members they have. What do I think I know about their life experience that they're bringing to the table each day? And as I think about that, then what questions are coming to mind for me? Where might I, need to go a little bit deeper to better understand them? And then that's the mapping piece, and the bridging piece is thinking about the group members in whole. Where might there be some opportunities to create better bridges so that we're tapping into the uniquenesses and building connection points between people who might seem really disparate in their perspective or the set of experiences they're bringing. And then integrate then is more specific plans for activating acting on what you've uncovered in those first two steps. And then it just becomes a process of making a specific plan for me, myself, What objectives do I want to accomplish? Maybe I want to increase the diversity of hires that I'm making. What are some things that I can do in that space? Give myself a time frame. So we ask for near term and longer term goals, 30, 60, 90 days, longer term. And how will you recognize that you're making progress? And what will be signals that tell you, ooh, maybe I need to rethink this or ask for advice or, whatever the case might be. And then we do that, ask them to do that same exercise for their individual team members. And then finally, to think about the team as a whole. What are one or two? We're not advocating boiling the ocean. What we are advocating as steps I can take that I can easily commit to, that I can measure and grow from.
Excellent. And there's a lot. I like your framework. I like how you have really kind of organized, the approach and how the different phases or, the pillars that you need to, as you mentioned earlier, that someone will go through and how it accelerates, your thinking and your actions at the end. Do you anticipate people continuing to go through this year after year? How do you think it's something, or do you select certain people to get through it?
Yeah. So the way it's set up now, and probably will be for the foreseeable future, just given capacities, is that it's attached to our flagship first time leader program. So called Frontline Leadership. And so Inclusive Leadership is a module of that program. It's the final module of the program. The first module is self-awareness. Then we have coaching, and then leading change in high-performing teams. And we wrap up the program with Inclusive Leadership because we feel like it pulls on all of the previous content areas here. We also offer it as a standalone. So just this week, we ran a standalone offering of Inclusive Leadership for leaders who would not have had access to Inclusive Leadership as a part of their Frontline Leadership program, because we just launched this module in 2021. And so that's one sort of catch-up mechanism that we have available to us. We would like to be able to offer it much more broadly. But again, given our capacity and our strong belief that simply giving people that tool to create a plan isn't useful without the context that gets you, puts your head and heart in the right spaces to begin with. So we're telling ourselves we're happy with slowing down to speed up.
Right. And that makes sense. So that makes sense that you're offering it as another option as a standalone to hopefully make it available to as many as you can. And before we wrap up today, are there any lessons learned or further considerations for companies or leaders to think about?
Yeah, I think the first one would be that, thinking about the fact that we all live our lives in very connected ways, right? And so when we're thinking about content or learning experiences that are meant to shift behaviors, I think we're most successful when we think about how what we're working towards is integrated into the full fabric of our learners' lives, right? So they're whole people. They're not just, widget makers in a plant somewhere. They're also mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, sons and daughters, community members, volunteers, etc. And so how can we, I think it's really valuable to make as many of those connections to the so what for them as possible. That would probably be my first recommendation, I guess. And I guess not all change opportunities are created equally. So what we're asking people to do is make change. So it is really important to seek to understand on the front end what really is getting in people's way. That's how we learned, and we're pretty clear about church and religion for a number of our participants. Is that front end work we did on the to just gauge where people's interests and where we things were getting in the way. It's really valuable because it affords you the opportunity to just meet it head on, put a name on it, and just work through it together.
Perfect. That was excellent. Thank you for sharing your perspectives and some tips here for others to think about and consider. And I think this whole your entire approach and program and what you have accomplished is excellent. And
so thank you.
We're happy to be part of your I wouldn't say part of your success, but we're happy to be here and witnessing your success and and your recognition that's well deserved. Congratulations again, and thank you for being part of our study. This is an ongoing study for us, as we look at priorities for next year and where companies should be, allocating their resources. We're capturing what companies are doing, such as you and leaders. And one of the areas that companies want to do more in is around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think how you build it is so important. But not just offering it, but really thinking about how it all ties together and how you can maximize your impact, and then how you can create actions to do so. So that's critical.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time we had together today and the opportunity.
Thank you, Stacy, and I look forward to hopefully continuing our discussion here along your journey, and hopefully you'll be joining our conferences next year. Would love
already booked.
We look forward to hearing from you at them, and stay healthy and enjoy the holiday season coming up here in the next
couple. You as well. Be safe.
Thank you.